Each week, American History TV's Real America brings you archival films that help provide context to today's public affairs issues.
Here is stoop labor in the literal meaning of the term, but the term is also applied to many of the toughest and least desirable farm jobs. For example, no stooping here, yet because citrus trees are thorny, more difficult to pick than other fruits, most farm workers avoid this kind of job. All such farm jobs which are tough, dirty, or unpleasant are generally referred to as stoop labor. Understandably, then, this is the only area in which the American farm labor supply falls short and is supplemented by Mexican citizens, sometimes called nationals or Mexican nationals. But the term most commonly used is braceros. In Spanish, this means a man who works with his arms and hands. It so happens that the braceros form a tiny fraction of the total labor force used on our farms. Yet some Americans feel even this tiny fraction should not be used. A typical dialogue pinpoints the major issues.
Well, with Americans on relief rolls, why bring in foreigners to work on our farms? Makes no sense.
Makes sense to the farmer, though. These braceros work for lower pay than Americans would.
But doesn't the farmer realize he's cutting down American labor, cutting down our living standards?
Why doesn't somebody do something about it?
In short, the big question in many minds is, why braceros? The question is so widespread that we consider it a public service to tell the why and how of braceros on American farms. Many field crops still call for stoop labor, especially at harvest time, when demand for labor is at its peak. It isn't easy to find men willing to take on such undesirable kinds of work, so the farmer must begin recruiting his seasonal labor force long before his labor needs reach the critical point. Once he's estimated the number of men needed, he goes to two potential sources. One of them is the Farm Placement Service, a combined federal and state agency which links men looking for work and farmers who have work to be done. Here, weeks before the season, the grower registers the jobs he has to offer, the types of work, the specific crops, the pay rates, and so on. This agency does an excellent recruiting job, but the farmer knows from long experience that workers able and willing to do this stoop labor are always in short supply. So he goes to a second source, a private labor recruiting association, the farmers' organized effort to recruit a labor force of their own. Again, weeks in advance, he notifies the association of his needs. The farmer knows that if the domestic supply is, as usual, short, the association can, if authorized, we repeat, if authorized, supply braceros to compensate for the shortage. Even if this agency doesn't have enough, the farmer is not authorized to import braceros until he proves to the official's satisfaction that the farmer's own recruiting service has utilized all the seasonal domestic labor available. What's more, federal law says that the farmer can bring in only the number of braceros required to fill the gap between the available domestic supply and the total number needed. Yes, with the domestic supply of farm labor being inadequate, braceros are a must, but some people say to the farmer,
Well, make the pay high enough and you'll pull in all the domestic labor you need.
The fact is that farm wages have gone up steadily for many years, but we still don't have enough seasonal domestic labor willing to do this kind of work. Conclusion: unless we have braceros to fill the gap, many stoop labor crops will be forced out of American agriculture. The consequences? Much of our food processing industry's output would be replaced by imports. These jobs, now held by Americans, would be taken by workers in other lands, and our plants and equipment would be slowed down or shut down.